Let's start with a really simple but powerful idea. To understand a huge mistake that so many people make in the financial markets, we actually need to talk about cricket for a second. Yeah, cricket. Specifically, what happens when you're completely outmatched and you don't even know it.
Just picture it. You're standing there, and Jasprit Bumrah is about to bowl a 150-kilometer-per-hour scorcher. And what's in your hands? A plastic toy bat. It's not just a mismatch, right? It's a complete disaster waiting to happen. Well, what if I told you that this exact same scenario plays out every single day? Not on a cricket pitch, but in the stock market. And there it is. The cricket pitch is the derivatives market, and that plastic bat, well, that's the set of tools most retail traders are bringing to the fight. Every single day, thousands of people are stepping up to the plate, totally unprepared for the professional level game they've just walked into. So let's call this exactly what it is: the plastic bat problem. It's this whole issue of being fundamentally under-equipped, totally outmatched. Basically, you're set up to lose the game before you've even made your first move. Because here's who's on the other side of the field. You're not just up against other individual traders. You're facing massive institutions, the real pros. These guys have the best tech, mountains of data, and entire teams of experts who live and breathe this stuff. They've absolutely mastered the game. It's David versus Goliath, but David showed up without his slingshot.
So what's the real-world result of this epic mismatch? Well, the numbers are pretty staggering, and they point to a huge misunderstanding about why so many people fail at this. 94%. According to the source material, that's the percentage of retail traders who lose money. Just let that sink in. For every 10 people who give it a shot, more than 9 of them fail. But the most important question isn't that they fail, it's why they fail. And here is the absolute key insight. This failure has nothing to do with how smart you are. You could be a genius and still lose your shirt in the market. The problem isn't intelligence, it's a lack of training. It's about being trained to see the real game that's being played, not just the simple version you see on your screen.
This really shows the two different mindsets perfectly. The plastic bat approach, over on the left, is all reactive. You're just chasing prices after they've already moved. But the professional approach, on the right, that's proactive. It's about looking at the market structure to figure out why a price is likely to move, before it ever does.
Okay, so how do you actually make that jump from being reactive to proactive? Well, it all starts with learning to look past the price chart itself and starting to see the invisible forces that are actually pushing the market around. This is the core idea. Just watching price candles go up and down is like watching the scoreboard of a game without ever seeing the players on the field. Sure, you see the result, but you have no idea why it happened or what's likely to happen next.
So the first pro tool is something called order flow. Think of it like a thermal vision camera for the market. While the price chart just shows you where the ball landed, order flow shows you the intensity of every single move along the way. It literally reveals who's in control. The big
Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. A quick sound check. Am I audible? Great. Welcome to this 5 p.m. session where we have a review of how we need to use the order flow and the features which we have in order flow and how to make sense of it and how to take good setups using it. We have some features which are available in order flow and we follow them all. We don't trade on the basis of one single tool. We have a uh, combination of tools which we want to be in place, and that is what we follow. That is our process at VTrender, and that is what we do at the VLD also. We strictly follow the process, and using the process we identify how many of the tools are in sync, because the more number of tools being in sync, that means the setup has got a higher probability of being a winner. So what I'm going to do is I'll just run through a review of the 30-minute order flow of Nifty futures from Friday and today, and we'll see what was the signals and what was the order flow showing us. So there are three things which we follow in the order flow. The first and the main part would be the signals, the initiative signals, the initiative buying and the initiative selling. Those will come at the top of the hierarchy. Those are the first thing which we look at. And then we have the LLTs, the big number, the big lot traders. And then we have the 10 bar COT which we follow. And we do this on both 30 minutes as well as 3 minutes. Why do we do it on 30 minutes? Because market profile is based on 30 minutes. So to understand structure, to understand the bigger time frame, we follow the 30 minutes. And execution part, we do it on the 3 minutes. Because markets are moving faster and faster, and you see lot of two-way moves on most of the days now in the current market. So it is better to be prepared and know what is happening, and that is why it is important to know what is happening on the 30 minutes as well as the 3-minute time frame. So the three things which we look out for or in the order flow is the signals, and we give preference to the initiative signals. The responsive signals are telling us old business. Initiative signals are telling us fresh businesses getting in. So then we have the LLTs, as I mentioned, those are the big players who have entered. So just a presence of an LLT is not a tradable setup. We need to know what the LLT is doing and what the order flow is showing that LLT as. If the LLT is combining with a favorable initiative signal, then that turns out to be a higher probability trade setup. And the 10 bar COT also tells us if what we are seeing in the signal and the LLT is in sync. If it is not, then there is something missing and you have to wait for things to add up and then look to trade when you have most of this in place. So coming back to the order flow chart, 30-minute order flow chart of Nifty futures, this is from Friday. What we saw at open on Friday was a open below previous day's POC and VWAP. So the PLR was to the downside. We made lower lows in the A and B. Then we made a typical seaside extension. In this seaside extension, we did not get supply at the lows. So it is very simple in the process which we follow. Seaside, we don't trust. And after the seaside, we look at what the D period does. And what did the D period do on Friday? It gave us an IB30 bar. So seaside already told us that the seller has failed, and this was more a con move. And then we got this IB30. And what do you do when you get IB30? You look at what the COT is showing you. The COT was green. And then you take a long position above the 26125. Your stop loss is at 26077. And you book target one would be the range of this. So here you see the COT was green. Nifty futures was falling down, but the seaside arrested the downside, and then you got an IB30 which closed above VWAP, and you can see how this POC of the IB30 held in the next two bars, and then we got another IB30. So but our first entry point would be this 26125, because all of the things were supporting. You are seeing this LLTs over here, 1383 green, 1353 green. So what I was speaking about, the three parameters of COT, all were in sync. So that is the reason this signal had a very good chance of giving you the targets in that direction, because we have a IB signal, initiative buyer, you have green LLTs, and this IB30 has come after a seaside, which we know what it is showing us. And then the LLTs were held. These two LLTs, which form the mid part of this IB30, you can see in the next two bars, the lows were right at that POC. So this was complementing the signal, and that is the reason we went on to make this new highs, But then what did we do? We made a attempt to extend higher. What did we see in the morning? The C side did not get supply. And here what we saw was a attempt to extend higher coming with an RS signal. So there was no IB here. So this itself is a fresh setup where you play that the play out the IB extension rule. And not to forget, this IB30 by this time 26172 was the target one. It has hit the target one. So once it has hit the target one, you book 50%. You got in the money in your account and you trail your stop loss to this IB30 high. Because you've got a fresh IB30, you will not take a fresh long trade here, but you can make a safer trade trailing stop loss to this 26153. And once this new IB30 gets triggered, you will not take a fresh trade here because you're getting an RS here. But if you want to give some time to for this to extend further, you will have this IB30 low as your trailing stop loss for the part longs which you have carried. Always remember, the first signal which you get is the most important signal. Yes, you cannot trade all IBs because you have already started a move and this objective has been hit. So when you are trading at an objective, you are being a laggard. If you go long at this 26172, which was a profit booking level from this IB30 signal, you are a laggard. And you can see how this IB30 has got zeros on the buy side. So this does not give you confidence to go long. So hence you need to identify which signal is good. Yes, the COT was green. In fact, this had the biggest green of the day COT wise. So you were still, the bias was definitely to the upside, but this PLR, this RSPOC told us to become little skeptical with longs and trail them to the nearest important level. So once this 2316 broke, it was then a question of taking this RSPOC out. And very important to know why this RS came at the place where it hit. And this was because this VWAP and POC was held. And another point to note here, even the second IB30 which we got, we rarely get multiple IBs on 30 minutes in 2-3 bars continuous. So even this IB30 which got triggered about 26144 had the objective met, and that is where it got an RS bar. So it is very clearly telling you what the target was, and then at that target it is telling you that the demand is not adding. So what you need to do, it keeps you aware that you need to book profits, and then you need to wait for the fresh signal to come up. So what did this do? It broke below VWAP, which was not a good sign at all. So you will not take any trades now because you're waiting for a fresh signal, initiative signal. These two initiative signals have given us the target one, and then they have come back to the cost. So that is negated. That signal is done, dusted. Now you need to wait for a fresh signal. What happened into the close? Because of the failure of this buyer, we went on to make new lows into the close. But what are we looking on the front of COT? You can see how the COT was completely green. And yes, and you can see how the COT of the last 2 bars, the last 45 minutes had the maximum green COT for the day. You didn't have this 4481 and 3601 green COT anywhere. And before I mention this IB30, the third IB30 did get triggered because we did get above this, but then this failed. So this was also a sign that along with this range extension failure, this third IB30 was negated. It had failed. So this was very clearly telling you that you need to come out of long positions. This 26136 was our reference. And that is the reason we went on to make new lows into the close. But what happened when we made new lows? We made a neutral extreme profile on the market profile front, but the COT was completely green. In fact, we had, I think the 10 bar COT was around 13 to 14,000, which is huge. And you don't want to short a market which is showing you such green COT. So that is one rule which we follow. We don't trust a market which rises on red COT. And similarly, we don't trust a market which drops on green COT. So this was the market which dropped on green COT. You can see the entire fall was on green COT. There is no single 30-minute bar where you are seeing red COT. And yes, there was one exception to this because it was expiry. It could have been possible that these were rolls, these were positions in the November series who are liquidating. That is the reason we are getting red, we are getting green. But if that was the case, we had to check, and we did check the December series also. When we are close to the settlement day, couple of days before the settlement day. So for example, we have the settlement day on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. So Thursday, Friday and Monday are the days where we give lot of importance, and we have one tab open of the December futures so that we can tag and see what is happening there, because it should not be that we completely get blinded by this green COT and think that the greens are building here. But actually what is happening is people are coming out of shorts in the November and are building the same short position in the December. So whatever COT was seen here would have got reflected in an opposite manner in the next series if that was the case. But that was not to be. I'll come to the December futures order flow also. So seeing what it was definitely not worth taking any or carrying any short trades because the COT was not in sync. As I mentioned, we need at least most of the tools, majority of the tools to be in our favor before we can take a setup. Only then the setup will have a higher probability of being a winner. Like what happened in this IB30, which gave us the first target, and this second IB30, which gave us the targets. And yes, this IB30 failed, but then yes, you did get a sign that the buyer has failed over here in this attempt to extend above IBH. And it was also just below the previous day's VWAP. So what we ultimately went on to do is confirm a failed auction over here, 26195. And we have a very simple bias regarding the failed auction. Below the failed auction, we are bearish. Above the failed auction, we are bullish. But then along with the bias, we also need the order flow to give us the confirmation. So what do we need in the order flow to tell us? If you want to short, we need IS signals. That is our first and most important weapon. Then we look at the COT, and then we look at the LLTs. So here we did not get any IS signal in this drop, and the COT also was not giving us any confirmation. So definitely it was not at all a convincing setup to take a short trade. In fact, many of us in the VLD, the aggressive traders, took contra long positions at close, seeing the 10 bar COT, and also this that there were no IS signals in the 30-minute order flow. So what happened today? So I'll switch on to today's order flow, 30 minutes. And let's compare this with what I'll just do the first half first, and then we'll move on to the second half. So what we saw in the morning, we had an open auction in range. We opened higher, which was not surprising at all considering what the green COT we got. And you can see how this trifecta of greens into the close, this POC held, and this 26071 was a very important reference even for today. It was the POC from previous day 26079, and it was the POC of this closing bar. So what we saw at the open, the higher open did not sustain. It came back lower, but in the lows of A period, you saw zeros on the sell side. So there was no supply adding over here. And the COT in the A period continued to be green. So again, there was no case of looking at taking any shots. But then when we got this move back above VWAP with a green bar on 30 minutes, for the first time in, I think, 12 bars, we got a red COT. It was not a big red, but it was red. What was it telling us? It was telling us that the buyers who had accumulated in the drop previous day are booking profit. And you can see how the POC of this shifted top to the top in the B period, and how we made the typical seaside extension. Seaside extension, you can see how zero on the buy side, and you have reds, more reds in this bar. The greens are in the middle in the bottom part, but where we needed to extend, we are not getting demand. So what eventually happened was we again confirmed another failed auction today. So this was about the first half of the day. So we got a failed auction, but what did we see in the COT? COT again was not showing us too much of red. When did the things change? That is the reason we give lot of importance to the G period. And you can see how in the G period, the first signal came that maybe the things are changing and the order flow with the COT can get in sync. You can see this 1024 red. It feels as if it's a laggard seller, but that is not the case. That is the reason we need to identify what the LLT is doing and what order flow signal it is leaving. And you also need to be aware about where it was, what previously when it was in that zone, what was the signal it got. So you can see how the greens had accumulated at that level. And this 1024 was nothing but an RB bar, which was telling us that this buyer may be the one who is exiting. You don't treat this as a laggard seller because of whom you can get a move back to day's high, because you know for a fact and you have this NPOC which has been tagged, and that is where you have got this 1024, and it is very clear that this is not some big supply coming in because you have zeros below it. So it is more of these longs being forced to liquidate. So that was the first sign that this failed auction now is in play. But for more downside, we needed to get to that confirmation from COT. And this COT you can see again turned red. And if you shift later on to the day, you see how LLT started to jam up at this VWAP. And what LLTs were they? These were red LLTs. 1685 red, 747 red, 488 red. So when they are coming at VWAP and the POC of the day is also here, what does that tell you? That is telling you that now the sellers are trying to take complete control. You have a failed auction. You are below VWAP. You're not able to take out VWAP. The failed auction is confirmed. Yes, you've got an RB bar. So here you don't take a short trade because the extension is come on an RB. Like what we got the extension to the upside with a failed seaside extension. But things started to change in this 145 bar, where you are seeing big LLTs red at VWAP. So what does this tell you? And along with that, you see the COT. COT is also showing you red. And we will, as I mentioned, we near to the expiry, we follow both the current series and the next series. Although we did not get an IS30 here, we got that IS30 signal in the December series. And that is why it is very important for us to be aware nearer to the expiry, have both of them open in a tab. And whenever you see activity in one series, compare it with what the new series is showing. If both are showing the same, then you know that the direction is clear. So and one more thing we would want to add is this is very close to the expiry. So you will have lot of LLTs coming in, and these are rollovers. The rollover volume caught is not the same as what you have on normal general days when a series is in full flow. So this COT you will have to keep making note of, and that will keep changing. So you have to know that you have to treat this COT, the 10 bar COT, nearer to the expiry in a slightly different manner, because it has the power of changing information, and you need to be aware, because these are positions which are being built for the entire series. These are not positions which are built for a intraday, and these are positions which are built maybe in bits, and it is built with lot of planning. And all these LLTs which you see in futures may have hedges made in options. So we will never know the entire picture, but what we know is what we need to follow in our order flow charts. So when we see most of the in sync, we know that this is changing. The COT being red with, and the most of the big seller LLTs came at the VWAP. So that was a very strong indication that we are headed lower. And what happened later? Yes, we did get green COT in the last two bars, but here it was more of profit booking because we kept falling, and you can see more reds in the bar. Only when we started to make those new lows into the close, you're seeing this big greens, which was more of profit booking. So this is what we need to do. And even the 10 bar COT, if you can see the 10 bar COT before these 3 bars had turned into red. Only because of these last 3 bars, which is more than 5,500, this 10 bar COT is now a green figure. So this is how it played out, and this is why we need to give importance to all of the three parameters of order flow. So I'll just quickly move on to the December order flow, and this is the Nifty futures December order flow, and you can see how the Friday's order flow started on a similar note. We opened below previous days VWAP and POC. We got an RS. We continued the downside trend. We made a C-side extension, and we got this IB30. And you can see so cleanly IB30 got activated. It gave us this range of 50 points. 26370 roughly was the target, and we hit the 26370, which is also an NPOC. And you can see how you get an RSPOC right at where the objective was. So when you're getting this, it is telling you that yes, it has hit the objective, and at the objective it is not showing any signs of continuation because it is giving you an RS. RS is, that means old businesses covering. So this IB, the buyer, the initiative buyer, you can see the LLT green as we saw in the November futures. The same thing came in the December futures. The COT was also completely green, and this IB30 gave us a target one. But here the RS came in, it stalled the move, and then we went on to make new lows into the close. Similar to what we saw in the November series, you can see the COT was green. This entire drop after that failed move above the IBH came on green COT. So that is why when both the current and the next series are showing you green COT in the drop, you know that this is not, there is something which is missing. So this market can always give a bounce, and you need to figure out what it does when it gives that bounce. So what happened today? So this is today's 30-minute order flow chart, and it was an open auction in range, but we opened below previous day's VWAP and POC. We made new lows in the B period, but again, there hardly any volume. There was no fresh supply. And then this was a typical seaside extension where you've got zero on the buy side, and it got rejected back into the initial balance, after which we remained below the initial balance high. And once we broke VWAP, there was a chance that this will get confirmed as a failed auction, and it did get confirmed as a failed auction. And you can see in December the COT had already started changing the color from the FTPO, from this red COT, big red COT, big red COT, red COT continues. And here what happened, we saw those LLTs at VWAP in the November series. Same thing was happening in the December series. You're getting this 855 red, 537 red right at this VWAP. So VWAP is the sacrosanct level. If a seller is in control, he will keep it below VWAP, and vice versa for a buyer being in control. And what we saw in the December, we got this IS30. We saw IB30 on the previous day. This IS30 got triggered below 26240. It went on to hit not one but two targets on the downside. And then you can see how we got another IB30, but this came in the LTPO. So we will have to take it slightly with a pinch of salt. But what it has told us, that the seller has continued into the close. We saw some profit booking, and we saw some green COT coming in, but later in the bounce, we had sellers coming back. So here in the L, when it made new lows, you can see how these greens are stacking up. But then in the bounce which we got here, you can see how the reds came back in. So this is why you need to be aware about the order flow parameters. LLTs coming at a good reference. Are they going to push further down, or are they going to give you a retracement? And here you know, yes, profit booking is definitely on because you've got a good move, and the POC is also shifted lower. But COT wise, it is not giving us an indication that all the sellers have booked out. I'll just open up the, so you can see how the 10 bar COT in December is now minus 5,000. So this is how you will need to figure out how the setups are playing out and make sure that the three parameters are in sync in order flow before you take a favorable trade setup. So that is the reason we have to make sure that we are following the process and we don't get carried away just by one of the tools. Just because a green LLT is coming does not mean that you have to go long, because you can see how this 1035 green came as an RB, after which we did not get any buy signals. IBs are what we want along with green COT or an LLT to give us a long side trade. Similarly, red COT was coming in and we were looking to go short, but we can't go shorts on a bar where you are getting zeros on the sell side. Yes, this confirms all the three things. The 10 bar COT is red, the VWAP is holding, you're getting LLTs at the VWAP, and then you get an IS30. And then the IS30 gets activated. 26288 is your stop loss, and you go on to hit not one but two targets. 26144 was the second target which got hit into the close. And now going forward, you can say that even this IB30 is got activated below 26160, but because the structure was a neutral extreme profile and we know the neutral extreme does not give a follow up most of the times, plus we also saw the POC shift to a lows, so we will have to give it some space, and this VWAP of today would be our reference, which is also coinciding with this VWAP of the first IS30 bar. And yes, IS30 high of 26245 also would be a reference, but that is in case we open up higher. So as of now, this POC and this extension handle 26212 would be the reference. If we get above that, then we are looking at this zone, the VWAP and the IS30 high. So because the 10 bar COT is still red and you have IS30 in play, so the PLR would be to the downside, but yes, because it's a neutral extreme close, we will look if we are getting any retracement and what on the 3-minute order flow that retracement shows. So that is as far as the order flow goes for tomorrow. And make sure even tomorrow you have both the November and the December order flow. You can have it in a 2-window mode. So that it becomes easier to immediately compare whatever references you are getting. So in case you're getting a 1214 green LLT, immediately see what is happening. You see a similar green over there. So you know that this volume is on the same side, same color in both the series. If it is a roll, it would be of opposite colors. So if you are getting a green in the November series, it could be a similar red in the December series. But then you cannot make sure, because rolls the big players uh, keep doing the rolls at their planned levels, and they do it in tranches, and they also have equally hedged options in play. So but we can only control what we know. That is the reason we have this well-oiled process which we follow, and we have these parameters which we want to be in sync before we take trades. So you can see how that 145 bar in December gave us an IS30, but although the LLTs red were there in the November series, it did not close an IS30. This was giving an IS30 signal, but into the close it did not close an IS30. But nonetheless, because this triggered, we had a very good move in the November series also. So that is it for today, guys. We just needed to focus on the order flow session today, because we had lot of queries about the market not giving us a follow through in spite of closing at lows on Friday. The difference was in the COT, the difference was in the 10 bar COT and the LLTs which came in on Friday, and that picture changed midday today. And that is the reason what you were expecting at open in the morning came in later in the afternoon. So let's see how this goes, guys. Tomorrow we have the settlement. So make sure you have this window open along with the other tools which we have explained so well clearly the gamma density and the gamma zero. Because we have closed up in a spike, the inventory is little bit in shambles. So we will have to look at how they readjust at the open, and then post the open, get back to the rules, follow the process. You, as I mentioned, we have three parameters in order flow. We give the highest importance to the signals, and in the signals, the initiative signals, the IBs and the IS, that is the topmost. After that comes the LLTs, the big players. Where are the big lots entering, and what are the big lots showing up as, whether they are part of an IB signal or an RB signal. Responsive signal, LLT is only telling you that it could be old business. You need LLTs with initiative signals. That is what gives you confidence that yes, you can get a move in that direction. And last but not the least is the 10 bar COT. You cannot undermine its importance. It needs to show you that the trade, the direction of the trade which you are planning to take is supporting, because that is giving you the bigger picture. And that is the reason we follow the 10 bar COT both on 30 minutes and 3 minutes. So that is it for today from my side, guys. Let's have a great settlement tomorrow, and make sure you follow these rules and are in lookout for good setups. You should be able to identify which are the good higher probability setups and which are the setups which you can avoid, because it is your capital, it is your money which you are risking. So it is best when you risk on the setups which have higher probability of working out. So thank you guys for joining in. I'll sign off for now, and any queries you have, you can please get in touch with us. You can DM me on X, or you can WhatsApp me at my number. I'll be happy to answer your queries. And you can also mail us at support@wetrender.com. Thank you guys for joining in, and have a great evening.